Today I'm joined by Dr. John A. King, an author, poet, survivor, and longtime advocate for men's healing and recovery. Dr. King is the founder of the Give Them a Voice Foundation in Texas, which he launched in 2015 to provide support to survivors of sexual abuse and trafficking. He's the author of Deal With It, leads the Phoenix Collective, and runs Men Church, a straight talk space for faith, brotherhood, and real conversations about what it means to heal. His award-winning documentaries have raised awareness about human trafficking and PTSD, and his novels Rats and Rain, as well as Sins of the Father, bring a storyteller's edge to the raw realities of pain, faith, and redemption. Known for his practical wisdom, Dr. King believes in simple habits, honest dialogue, and tools that people can start using to heal. When he's not leading others through recovery or speaking on trauma and resilience, he's working on his next book. So amazing to have you.
Well, thank you. Great to be here.
I am so honored. And it's November, Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And
Yes.
I've seen glimpses of your powerful story in the documentary Stop Being Trafficked and Light in the Darkness, Living Well with Trauma. Wow. So, Dr. King, would you care to open up and share a bit about your childhood and
Sure.
that journey today? Yes.
It was in 2008. I think it was Thursday at about 10:45 in the morning. I had complete recall at that stage at what happened to me, and it came flooding back. Up until then, it was like little 8mm frames of those old movies, little bits about my childhood that I felt were disconnected and I felt were normal. And that morning, they all came stringing together and played continuously for about 7 years. And, to be honest, some days they still do. And it was a history of my first sexual encounter was when I was 4. And at that stage of my life, from the woman who raised me and her friends, equal opportunity victim, I suppose, for want of a better term, but I was abused by men as well through the Scout movement in my early teens. So all of this stuff came back, and it led to a total life meltdown. So I lost everything. I was pastoring a church at the time. My marriage imploded, estranged from my children. I ran a very successful boutique speaking and corporate coaching and writing business, traveled the world about 9 months of the year. And I went from that to a chronic stutter, a stutter that was so embarrassing for people. They would they would get upset and just walk away. They couldn't sit through a sentence. And
Wow.
I remember when I had to get an apartment. I went from, a family home to living in a 1-bedroom apartment like a college student with best, cement block built shelves and a mattress on the floor. And I had to have a friend come over and sign the lease papers for me because I couldn't speak. So it was a cluster.
Sounds like it. And I know parts of your story are difficult to hear, but I believe they're necessary for people who are still in the dark to know healing is possible.
Yes, it is. I know my story's ugly, Catalina, and I think one of the blessings for it is that if I can make it, so can they. And that's the hope, just turn all things around for good. I never prayed and asked why me. The only prayer I ever had really was that it would turn all things would be turned around for good.
And they did. Oh.
Yeah, it is. It's quite fun. I like this now. I like John 2.0. I never really liked John 1.0. He was always struggling to prove himself, struggling to achieve, struggling to get together. And John 2.0, he just wants to write poetry and smoke cigars under a tree. And which was a total mind shift from this goal-driven guy to this poet, creative writer. And I had to spend a lot of time getting to know this guy because your brain changes with recall and changes with trauma. And it really was a shift, but I'm very grateful for that shift. I've learned a lot in that shift. I think I stopped living from the outside in and started to live from the inside out for the first time. And that was, that's been an incredible part of the journey.
Yeah, I was I when I watched that little clip, I was nauseous. I started crying out of control. It just I
So was I when I saw the movie. I thought, you're crazy. What the hell have you done?
whoa. I am telling you, I've never heard a story that just you've been through things no child should ever experience.
Yeah, amen to
Um,
that.
my goodness. When you look back, what kept you going through it all?
Um, I wondered. Um, I, I am resilient and relentless. I think I always have been. And I just had to believe that there would be another tomorrow. I wouldn't admit or I wouldn't say rather that that was a conscious thing as a child. I was just surviving as a child.
Hmm.
I think the thing that's kept me going in recovery is this, susu, this white knuckled courage in the face of overwhelming odds. It's a Finnish word. And when everything seems lost, susu manifests itself. And so that's how I've come to define susu as relentless resilience. And I think that just that dogged determination, man, that sounds really fancy. All right, here's another take. I just wanted to prove the bastards wrong. Like they tried to ruin my fucking life and I wasn't going to let them win. Yeah, that's probably more honest. I think that's probably more honest.
And how do you feel now that you've actually proven them wrong?
Well, I'm in the process of proving them wrong. I've got a few more things to go. Okay, so here's how I feel. I am married to the most incredible woman. I didn't
Amazing.
think that marriage could be this good, that sex could be this good, that you could actually have a best friend you wanted to hang around with. Um, and, we work together, so we're 24/7, and it is awesome.
Hmm.
It's just awesome. My life is awesome. I
And
love it.
why do you think you're not there yet? You haven't proven them wrong yet.
I still have very dark days. Um, I still have very difficult days, and I think I'm very comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with the fact that I think the concept of recovery as a destination is very dangerous because you let your guard down, and I've let my guard down at times, and it's had regrettable ramifications. Uh, I think it it would be nice. It will be nice when it is a shadow in my revision mirror, as opposed to something I'm constantly avoiding. It just I think that would be okay. At the moment, I still mitigate and do my best to manage my days. I think to get to a stage where I'm aware of this thing, like it sits in my peripheral, and I'm just walking through life, um, instead of still the sense of carrying it at times. Because I think our past will either refine us or define us. And I think I'm in the process of allowing my past to refine me. And I don't know if I'll ever be finished that process. I hope I won't. I hope I'm always doing my best to excel and become a better man. So maybe I won't ever arrive. I don't know.
Interesting. So you would rather just progress daily as opposed to reach that destination.
Yeah, yes, I think so. Because I don't know what that destination is. So what does recovery look like? I don't know what normal is. I wrote a poem once just asking myself the question, you know, who could I have been? What would this man have been if this hadn't happened to him? And it's a bit of a useless thought in terms of you can't ever You don't get do-overs in life. But it's an interesting mind exercise. So if you take out these elements of abuse that have made me, and as I said, I'm happy with who I am, but you take them out, then what would have that life looked like? Because this life is a life I'm committed to and where I'm going. And so just as an exercise, as a mental exercise, it's something to think about. But I don't ever dwell on it because it's just not a reality. This is the lot I have. Today is the only thing that's concrete to me. Talking to you is the only real thing I'm doing at the moment. And so that has to become the most important thing that I'm doing at the moment. And I think a life is strung together from now to now to now, these moments of incredible success. Success being defined as when opportunity meets preparedness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's when you're passionately involved in something that's very important to you. I think that's what success is. And do I feel successful? I do, because I'm passionately involved in things that are important to me. And will that goal of success change? Maybe not, because I'll always be involved in things that I'm passionately and purposefully driven to do. So I don't know if I ever get to an end goal at that stage.
What if you were to look and envision your healed self? You are healed now. How would that be? Are you peaceful? Are you looking at those people? And before we actually look at the destination, can we do a little exercise where I'd like to get into your shoes and truly feel, be in this moment. You were 4 years old. This is all where it all started, right? 4 years old. And both parents abused you.
I was 4 years old, and the man put honey and water in the woman's vagina, and
Your
the
mom's
choice.
vagina.
Yeah, I don't know if she was my mother. I got some birth records issues. I don't know, but it's the woman who raised me. Put bread, honey, and water in her vagina, and my sister and I were there, and there was a choice. Someone was going to orally remove that, and I just felt, even at that young age, that that I needed to do it to protect my sister. So that's how it started for me.
And how do you feel about those individuals now?
I don't really. No, because to feel means to attach emotion and weight to. What the fifth commandment talks about, honoring your mother and father, and this is a process I've had to work through because I had a hard time with that. But when I started to look at what those words mean, for me as a Christian man, it means that, and in my understanding of the Jewish, it meant to give weight to a person based on the authority and role that they had. So love was never an issue. What it was a sense of respect for being born, and a sense of weight that I'm where I am in the world, and these people played a role in it. And that's the limit of it for me. I speak truthfully about it, but I don't speak derogatory about it, because there's no need. Because the moment you start to attach a negative emotion to it, you're attaching weight to it. And I don't attach weight to it. If people ask me, I tell them more often than not that I'm orphaned, because I don't really want to get into the conversation with them. And there's lots of questions around my birthing records, and that's lots of questions around there. I met my family for the first time. I met my brothers for the first time 18 months ago, and I'm an Australian Indigenous man, a Warramungu man from the Red Centre. And so there was an Australian government policy to breed the black out. And so by the third generation, they take the women, rape the women, take the children, place them with European families. So by the third generation, the babies were blonde hair and brown eyes, and I was one of those kids. So we don't know what my heritage is, and we don't know the familiar record, where that stands. So I don't know, and all my birthing documents are confused. So I don't know how that stands. So that's why I refer to them as the woman and the man that raised me. One reason. The second, his parents would never do to a child that they loved the things they did to me. So I refuse to give them the honor of being seen as parents in my own life, because you just wouldn't do that to kids.
Right. Many survivors struggle with shame and silence. What helped you break yours?
Great question. Was an understanding that I was really embarrassed by my story. I was really embarrassed as a man that at the age of 4, I couldn't stand up for myself and protect myself. At the age of 10 or 11 or 12, I didn't have the wherewithal to fight back. And so I think that's one of the challenges with men talking about sexual abuse, is there's this sense of inner shame about not being able to protect yourself. And then going forward, society doesn't talk about the sexual abuse of men. We are comfortable, unfortunately, to have a conversation about the abuse of women and girls, but you would never bring up the conversation as a man, because if you do, and I've seen it happen, conversations shut down and you lose friends because they're too embarrassed. I've had people who have been excited to read my book, and I've never heard from them again, because it's like, I don't want to, that his story embarrasses me. They're uncomfortable with it. So there's a lot of this inherent societal shame that gets compounded with the shame as a man. And also, if you think about it, there aren't resources for men. There's one house in America for young men who have been sexually abused. It's in Texas. And you remember, Catalina, 20 years ago, I started my recovery. There was not a single book on it. There was no support groups whatsoever in America. And so all you are is, and every time you go and ask someone for help and you're told no, and you're told that sort of things don't happen to men, men can't be abused, men are predators, then there's like, you get a point to go, well, fuck you, I ain't going to put myself out there anymore. And you stop.
And the fact that you didn't is what helped so many more men that just had to suffer in silence.
Yeah, I hope so. That's what my hope is. My hope is that it helps men now. And my other hope is that, if people are raising young girls, they will take time to school the young girls and being careful, tell the young girls to, be careful where they go and who they go with. They don't ever talk to the young boys about it. And, if you think about it statistically, 45% of traffickers are female. So if you're looking for the white man trafficking or abusing the black girl, you're missing the Asian woman trafficking the white boy. So, we've got to have a conversation that's outside of gender politics and is actually an issue of human rights. You have a right as a human being not to succumb and be put into a situation of a sexual predator.
Yeah, that is, yeah, we're having this is a big problem. And the fact that it's not discussed, it's kind of just on the low key. Nobody really wants to get to the bottom of it. It just, why is that? Like, what is going on with that?
Um, I think societally we are uncomfortable with masculinity. We've been trying to define and reduce the role of men within a society for a couple of generations now. And I think part of that is, you have to have a conversation not only about the nature of the victim, but the nature of the predator. And we're not prepared to do that. We've still got a little bit of a Mary Magdalene attitude towards women. Put them on a pedestal, they can't be serial killers. Whereas, it's just not the case. And they can't be sexual predators. And, men like sex, therefore boys should enjoy having sex regardless of the age. And so that's a narrative that's going over for a range of different reasons from a range of different agenda groups. And the result is that the majority of men that sit in the middle about 80%, 90%, um, don't have a sense of, being empowered to have those conversations. And there's not the resources for it. The United Nations has a department for women and girls, but they don't have any for men. But if you go overseas, you go into any of Afghanistan, Pakistan, whatever, 95% of the boys under the age of 11 have been sexually abused. Yeah, we're going to have to do a whole lot of stuff over there about women and girls, but we'll do nothing about boys. And in fact, the State Department and the Department of Defense, when it came down to the First and Second Gulf War, a lot of our pipe hitters and our hard men saw these young boys being sexually abused as part of the culture, and they were told to stand down and do nothing about it. That was an order from our government at the time. Whereas our guys wanted to go in and stop it, but it was said it was cultural because it was part of the Taliban culture. Now, our women and our girls, we wanted to protect those Afghan women and girls, but we would not be prepared to protect the boys. And that's how you make terrorists, man. You just take a young boy and, rape him. And, same in Africa. The soldier boy soldiers over there, the horrible things in Somalia and Nigeria.
Yeah, it's did you I know you mentioned God and you love the Lord. Did you lose faith during those times? Like how did you
No,
rebuild? You didn't. Oh, wow.
no, I,
I think
no.
that's what kept you going.
Well, he never left me or forsake me. God cries tears. God cries. And when you hear God cry for your own life, it's a very, very special thing. And he's wept with me, he's walked with me, he's talked with me, he's got the most incredible sense of humor.
Mm.
And so, he's been my best friend through it all, closer than any brother. And and I and it's an important part of my life, my faith, my recovery, my marriage, my everything really. Um, yeah.
Would you say that to heal you need God? Is that
Um, I know some people who aren't Christian, and they are in recovery in a very positive way, and they have a spiritual center. And so I think it's very important to have a spiritual center. I'm a Christian man. I'm a passionate follower of Jesus Christ, and I know that what Christ promised me and has done for me is second to none, and I know what the promises of His Word are, and I also know that He can draw all men unto Him. So wherever any man or any woman's journey start, at some point they'll have an opportunity to collide with Him. And whatever path they're on and journey they're on, they will end up getting there. That's part of what the redemptive work is.
I love it. That is beautiful. If you could speak to that boy again, the one who endured all of that, what would you say to him now?
Um, I've told him many times, and it took a long, long time for him to understand that it just wasn't his fault. It just wasn't his fault. And he's done very well having come this far. And I think it's a very freeing understanding. You asked earlier about the shame question. I realized at some point I was so embarrassed that it's like I would cover up and I'd never have a conversation. And I remember one morning God took me through a particular passage in Scripture, and He said, at some point your scars of shame will have to become medals of honor. That you will always wear these marks, but don't be embarrassed by those marks on your soul. Allow those marks to be signs you survived. You got through this. You are an overcomer. You are more than an overcomer. So don't be embarrassed about your story. And I think owning your voice in the midst of it. And I think that's different than making money off being a professional victim. And I think there are people who inhabit a victim mindset. And then there's people who want to leave their background behind them and walk on and never talk about it again. I think both of those are are disingenuous, non-authentic for me anyway, non-authentic for me, and I think they're a little bit disempowering. I think you have to understand, as I said before, your past either refines you or defines you. You have to understand that the past made you a person. It doesn't have to make and limit your future.
It's true. I love the wisdom, and I'm sure it's going to help so many people. Now, I'd like to also talk a little bit about your book, the new book
Sure.
coming, Turning Trauma into Traction, right? Um, Many recovery books feel abstract, at least to me. How did you make sure yours stays raw, practical, and doable for men in crisis?
I'm actually going to change the title, I think, to Turning Shit into Fertilizer. I think that's what I'm actually going to call it. The story so far, Turning Shit into Fertilizer. So, how did I make it real? I brought 3 boxes of cigars, took 6 weeks, and sat in my garage and wrote. And I cried for 6 weeks. My kids were living with me at the time. Melissa, my wife, she would leave Dad alone. He's having a little right at the moment. And I howled for 6 weeks, 3 boxes of cigars, and wrote, deal with it. It came out of when we did the stopping traffic tour for all those movie showings. I had so many men ask me, why aren't you dead? How did you get through it? So I took everything because I read about 200 books. I read 200 books to try and work out how do I recover because there was nothing for me. I went back to Napoleonic Wars, read about what we now call PTSD then, the Civil War, into World War II, shell shock. And I started to read all those things and understand what it was. And so deal with it is me trying to cram all that through a sieve and work out what works for me. So it's a very raw memoir. And in fact, if people go to my website, they can put their name in there. We've started something called a launch list. And when it comes out, I'm going to start doing chats with the author. When it comes out, I'm going to sign them a book and get them a book if they want one. And so we're going to try and do it. I'm going to try and come back on your podcast when I launch it and
Oh, that would be amazing.
do a virtual book tour with you. I'd love to.
Yes, I would definitely love to. Yeah. And can you share a story or a moment from the book that best captures the shift from brokenness to breakthrough?
Well, there's the one about where I nearly killed Melissa, but I might get her on to tell you that one.
Oh
Um,
no,
so it was a sailing accident. That was rough, but that's a long story. That needs a cigar and a beverage. There, there
that
was
sounds.
there was one when what it was the realization that I had some behavioral issues and I was actually broken. So you go through this arc of not loving yourself or liking yourself, and I clarified that in 2 ways. There was an incident was when I couldn't cope, but I would lock it in. An episode was when I couldn't cope, and everyone around me was subjected to it. And started to realize these things. And it was raining, torrential rain in Texas. And I hopped on my motorbike that I had at the time, wearing flip flops, gym shorts, and a t-shirt, a singlet. And I caught myself at 140 miles an hour down Highway 114, and I hit a puddle, and I was aquaplaning. And I started to get those death wobbles up. And I literally thought, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why am I actively involved in something that I'm trying to see? All I wanted to do was feel. I just wanted to feel. I was so numb. And I think that was there was a couple of key moments like that when I realized, you are really broken and you just need to be aware because your brokenness is leaking. And that was one of a series of things that happened. And I was like, okay, I need to really address some of this.
Right. Exactly. Like if somebody is in the same situation as you right now, but they haven't healed, what would you tell them to do to heal? What are those tools? You mentioned some tools in the documentary.
Yeah. So biohacking is a term where that came out of the late 90s of treating your body like a computer and hacking your body to get better performance. So I spent a lot of time developing a series of protocols that we would now call biohacking trauma. And they're things like diet, stay away from food coloring. I remember I'd flown up to speak at a large organization. I was in Chicago. There was one of those, those 1980s hotels. They had that big round atrium in the middle, and they had all those horrible palm trees covered in dust. All those things, those Marriott buildings. They did all that. So I landed. And some bad piano playing in the corner, which was always a long way from the toilet and the breakfast buffet. So that you stayed there. So I landed at 10, and I got in, and there was no room service. They'd all shut down that night. It was a Saturday night or something, a Sunday night. And I got a packet of Cheetos, a Coke, and some M&Ms because that's all they had. And I went up to my room, and 20 minutes later, I was looking down the atrium from the top floor, crying and suicidal. And I had enough sense to go, hang on, what happened? I was feeling really happy, and now I'm desperately suicidal and depressed. And the only thing that had happened between there and then was I went to the bathroom, I'd put my bags in my room, and I'd eaten my food. And that's when I realized that there was something wrong with the food. And I started to do the research on sugar, and it's tied to a depression and anxiety. Food coloring, red number 5, orange number 5. And this is back before, we had AI or the internet and so much so, and we were just starting that journey. And then that started to show me about what the impact of food was. So that's very important. Going to bed at the same time and getting up at the same time is very important. Rituals. You need rituals to anchor your life. Eating a high fat, high protein, low carbohydrate breakfast. Really a diet, but a breakfast in particular. So if you go to bed at the same time, get up at the same time, eat a breakfast, consistent like that, 20 minutes to 30 minutes of exercise 3 to 4 times a week. Don't touch your phone 2 hours before you're supposed to be asleep. That will solve about 70 to 80% of anxiety issues, depression issues. So you've got a whole lot of other issues that are overlaid on top when you're overcoming trauma. But if you can work on those foundational, that Venn diagram concept of you draw these little intersecting circles. I did one of those for dozens of things with understanding that the 20/80 rule, if I could affect 20% of things in my life that would have 80% of the impact, then I'd be a better person. So I drew that map out for myself, and then I just started working on 20%. And as a result of that, like changing food, diet, exercise, water consumption, things that cost nothing but everything. They cost you everything because it needs discipline, time, motivation to get it done. But the impact was profound.
So true. Those are the things we admit to take seriously. We're not really, like, most of the time we wake up and first thing we look at the phone and,
Yeah.
life is, we don't even realize that's
Yeah,
detrimental.
it
Um,
is.
yeah. What's one myth about trauma recovery that you want to dismantle once and for all?
That is one and done. That you'll recover 100% and everything will be okay and fine and rosy. It never will. It's like you would never say that if you're an alcoholic. You would never say that if you had a gambling problem. But here we are with trauma, and we think that, our fairy godmother's going to turn up and wave a wand. I had a dream one night, and I'm not sure what people will think about that, but I had a dream one night, and I was praying desperately. I believe that God heals. So I had a dream one night, and it was literally I was praying and asking God to heal me and heal me and heal me, because I wanted to get over this thing. And one night, it's like he spoke to me and he said, I'm not your fairy godmother, I'm your heavenly father. And every day you're going to have to rise. He said, and he said, if every day you'll get up determined to get one more tool for your toolbox, then you'll have everything you need when you need it. And that was a really important lesson for me, because up to that point, I'd been wanting these big things and big changes to happen because I was really sick and tired of being sick. And then when I came to accept that if I could just get 1% change, a day, I originally thought if I get 1% change a day, I'd be 365% better. But then I thought, you know what? I can just relax. Because if I get 1% change a week, then 50% of me is changed by the rest of the year. If I get 1% change a month, then in 4 years' time, I'll be a completely different person. And that's one of the things I try and teach people is you've got to take small steps because you've been through something. I went through, 14 years of abuse, then 30 something years of living with this thing that I didn't know even existed. So, here I am. I'm 15 years into recovery, and 2 years ago, I feel like I had my feet under me for the first time. And the reason I think I made it so far has because I realized I just needed to do one thing every day. And still every day I am the same boring guy. I get up, I do the things I know to do. I coffee, Christ and cigar I start my day with. I go to the gym. I eat my same boring food. And my wife can eat whatever she wants, but I've got old bodybuilder. This is what I got to do. Because I know it's that consistency that brings dependability and keeps me stable in my life. And the most important thing for me as a man is to be stable for Melissa, to be stable for my clients, to be stable for, the dog and the chickens. Because when I'm unstable, her world's unstable. And I don't want her world unstable because of something that I'm dealing with.
What does that word mean to you, and how does someone know they've started to gain it?
That's a great question. Traction. Well, Melissa has been very helpful. When I was married before in the previous administration, I would do something wrong, and I was reminded that I'm always doing something wrong, and we'll never get anywhere, and nothing will ever recover. And why would God have me be married to someone like you? And it'd be better off if you weren't on the planet for us all. So that was the previous administration. So, and the previous administration would literally count the days between my difficulties. I'd have a moment and say, well, it's always like this. I said, what do you mean it's always been like it? It's been 2 or 3 months since I had a really challenge. Well, see, it's always like it. It's never going to change. But with Melissa, and Melissa taught me this, she would say, and I'd say, man, I've messed it up. I'm always, she goes, no, no, we didn't. We have a beautiful day. We started having a great day, and you had a little bit of a difficulty, and we had 15 or 20 minutes of a tough conversation, and now it's good. So we've had this beautiful day, and we had 20 minutes when we needed to talk about something. Something didn't go quite right. So she taught me that a moment is a moment. It's not a life sentence. A moment is just a thing that happens that if you're right, it's right people and your right mindset, you get to leave that behind and get into the next moment. It's when you're in a relationship and a mindset where that moment comes with you like crap in a bucket, that you're just constantly dragging that shit forward, and you've got no way to let go of you. You've got no way of letting go of that thing because someone is covering you with shit. Here we go. Remember the shit you did last week? What about last month? What about on our honeymoon? And it's 24 years later. It's like, fuck me. Like, I can't even remember what socks I had on yesterday. And here I've got all this shit that I've got to deal with. And it's like, well, I'm out. I don't want to do that. So I'm sorry for your editor. He'll have to beep, 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 the Australian guy. So, and, Melissa taught me that. She's taught me so much. And that really is the power of a partner. Um, you know,
It sounds incredible.
she's a total pain in the butt too. I've got to put that in because if she listens to this, like people read my book, and at the end of every chapter, I write my bit and then she writes her bit. And we talk about how we made it through. They get, oh, John, great book. But Melissa, your chapters changed my life. It's like, what am I, chopped liver? But she's worth it. She's great. She's one of the smartest woman I ever know. She's got she's southern, and you can always tell when she's pissed off because she slows down. and she's got a master's in economics and statistics, but she's a hippie painter. She raises chickens. She's got a dog, and she spends most of her time begrudgingly working in our marketing company because she wants to just paint, and she's an incredible artist. So
Yeah,
she,
could be friends.
oh, I'm telling you, you could everyone. She's friends with everybody. I'm friends with nobody. They all come around and stare at me and talk to her. That's okay. I don't mind. I don't mind. I don't mind. I'll sit in my shed, smoke cigars, and write a book. I'm okay.
You have your own world with the right people in it
Yes, you
already.
do. And I do have some really nice people in my world. I'm incredibly
Mm,
rich that way.
that's
Um,
beautiful. You do have also
yeah.
an online community. How do your online communities operate day to day, and what makes them safe and effective for men? Because I know you said it's a safe space. What how do you what kind of describe this online community?
So, it took me 15 years and probably $300,000 to recover. So it's very expensive. Um,
Oh,
and and I thought it doesn't have to be. And that's what it normally takes people 10 to 15 years from the time they get a revelation and make a decision to get into a place where they'd say, look, I'm in recovery. That window doesn't have to be that long. So what we did was take that 15 years worth of knowledge and experience and condense it. And so what we've been able to do is present it in such a manner that people can come join the Phoenix Collective and go through a series of self-paced exercises and with coaching, group coaching along with that, or individual coaching. And part of Imbrani Aboriginal culture, we have men's business and women's business. So once a week on a Tuesday, and Melissa will get together with the ladies and they'll talk about things. And then Thursday night we have an open forum. But if there's guys that just need to talk, and I'll just talk to them about different issues. And then we've got Man Church, which is just for men. And you'll know this.
beautiful.
A group of men standing around. They're all going to slouch and their bellies are going to be out. And they go, a moment you walk in a room or a woman walks in a room, they all bow up and stand up and they drop their voices and talk. And they're not going to be honest about anything. Before they're just sitting around talking about the football and what the carry on in. So, and women do things face to face. Men do things side to side. So often with what we
Interesting.
do, we try and do it in relationship, in activity with our men. We've got our online thing, which is a face-to-face things, but I'll go shooting with guys. I've got a couple of hunting trips coming up. We did a close combat, small arm, long barrel training course with some guys. We'll
Wow.
sit around and talk about books, and you give it a chance for iron on iron for guys to start to build relationships.
I like that. That is amazing. And it's even though a lot of like men's spaces are often misunderstood or mocked today, but they're needed now more than ever. And in men church, I was reading online on your website, looks so cool. You emphasize straight talk.
Yeah,
What's one uncomfortable truth most men need to hear right now?
man. Okay, so I can tell you the podcast one or the real one, I suppose. Um, is forgive yourself.
Mm,
You tried really hard with limited knowledge. You never had a dad. You never had a woman model to you. You didn't know what sex was. Your sex came from pornography. Your self-esteem came from online stuff like, Instagram. You've never had a model of a father. You don't have a model of a husband. And you feel like an absolute failure every day because you get up and you don't know how to do that. And you live in a society where your effort to provide for people you love for is not respected. You're supposed to come home, hand over a paycheck, and you don't know if there's going to be affection. Men are simple. We want fetus and the other F, fetus and you get what I mean, we're growing up shit. So that's all we want. And a man can live in a loveless marriage, but he cannot live in a marriage without respect. Men need respect more than love. We don't crave love, women crave love, men crave respect. That's what drives us. So that's where Ephesians is very clear on some of the things it talks about, because it talks about respect and taken care of. They're two totally different conversations that the Apostle Paul's trying to have. And I think for men, they just need to be comfortable. Men are very forgiving creatures. We'll forgive our kids for being dicks. We'll forgive our wife for whatever, man. But we will not forgive ourselves for anything. And I think that's what, that's my hope, is to just look at fellas and say, you know what, mate, you're doing the best you can. Like, yeah, you stuffed up. That was really stupid. Don't do that again. But like, now get over it. Like, move on. Just don't do it again. And give them permission to go again. Because a lot of guys have just given up. They've given up on love. They've given up on business. Primarily, they've given up on themselves. But it's a different age we live in. I'm lucky. I married a girl from South Carolina whose grandma beat her with a switch every morning, and I'm very grateful to grandma. But I'm telling you, she was either
Like those who.
she was either going to get saved and become a gorgeous wife or be a serial killer.
Oh
Melissa,
gosh.
there's nothing in between for Melissa, man. She'll cut you. She'll cut you, man. If you put her sideways, she's gonna cut you. She's a bit crazy. She got a crazy eye. She's a Cherokee. So a red fella marry a black fella. So she's got some Cherokee in her, man. She's gonna get up on your business, sister.
Oh, that is so good. You know, I wonder, like, what are your thoughts on those women that think men shouldn't be vulnerable, men should just man up? What do you tell those women coming from, where you're coming from?
My vulnerability is decisional. I've chosen with I've chosen to be vulnerable with people like you for the benefit of other men. I would not say that by my nature I'm either extroverted or vulnerable. I'm very vulnerable around Melissa because that's very important. I'm very vulnerable in a one-on-one conversation with another guy because that's very important. But the reason that a lot of men won't come home and talk to their wives is because the way that what
Yeah.
women need, and it's very important for a man to be a protector, a director, a corrector, a provider. And if you come home, women really don't want men to be vulnerable. They don't want a man to come home and sit down and share his feelings. For number one, they're going to get sick and tired of it because it'd be like listening to themselves all day. And no, we get crazy with that. And 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 secondly, is they don't cope with some of the burden of that. Like it's like it doesn't. They take on offense because they love their husband, or if finances are struggling, they just want to know that their man's going to take care of them. Now that doesn't mean that you don't have authentic relationship and partnership, but I I want to come home to my safe space. I want to come home to the one spot in the world where, even though we might be having financial hassles, and we've had those, we might be having medical crisis, and we've had those, but when I come home, my everything is here. And if I'm coming home to my everything, then I will kick down the doors of hell to get heaven for her. And I think that's what a man wants. And I think that's why men don't want to come home and just necessarily be vulnerable. And the other thing is we process differently. Um, it doesn't mean that we're not verbal processors, but, you know, sometimes we just need to sit and think about a thing. And then we'll make up our mind and, we'll just do something about it. Sometimes we need to outwork that and process that. But then other times we might have had to try and actually had to have a conversation with you and it wasn't well received. It was like ignored, laughed, mocked. I went through all of that. So for me, vulnerability was a learned process I learnt with Melissa. I had to unlearn 24 years of really bad communication. And then with Melissa, I've had to learn what appropriate levels of communication are so that she doesn't get worried and concerned about me. And she doesn't get worried and concerned about our life because I want to protect her from that. Now, sometimes she'll sit down and say, I need you to talk to me more because you're obviously, and I go, okay, well, I'll chat. Well, why didn't you tell me? Because I don't want you worrying because I'm going to work it out. And so some of that is a to and fro in establishing yourselves in relationship. I know that was a very long answer, so I'm sorry about that.
That was so beautiful. These are all just the wisdom and just the rawness and how you answer from the heart. I love it. What is a breakthrough story from someone in the Phoenix Collective that still moves you? Is there
Oh,
someone that?
yeah, there is. There's a lady that's on there, and it's really tough background, man. And I mean, when we started having some of our coaching calls, she would get up and leave the room because she couldn't be confronted. She didn't like, the openness, and she couldn't cope with what the conversation required of her. She was prepared to hear it, but she wasn't prepared to give it. And I think in the 3 or 4 months she's been with us, she's probably up to where I was 3 or 4 years into recovery. So she's my poster child in terms of we know this works. And we've got doctors on there, with veterans on there, police officers, we've got naturopaths on there. Um, and we really are trialing this thing and seeing what works. And we've come to understand that there's so much material that we're changing our formats at the moment to make it very much a conversational coaching collective, so that we can meet people where they're up to and give them the resources so they can go through it at a self-pace. Because some people, like me, I consume information, and some people need to sit a long time with certain things.
And are these courses, so the Phoenix Collective, which one is the one that so there's the Men Church and the Phoenix Collective, right?
Correct. Yeah.
How much does it cost to get onto the on the one of the which one
Well, Man
is?
Church is free. You can just climb onto Man Church, register, go on there and register for Man Church, and every month we'll send you a reminder and a Zoom link for what's coming up. The collective depends upon what you want. You can just get the app and scoot around and see. There's probably 160 videos for free on there that are PTSD minutes that people can watch. But you can go on and do a 7-day free trial, which is you're more than welcome to do that. That's the Mindfire Challenge. Go on there, use everything for 7 days, and then we have a conversation about what's going to meet your need. Because the funny thing is, we only really value what we pay for. And but we've got that wrong in the sense that, so we value our car, our house, and our clothing, but it's the things that we don't actually pay for that we don't value, like our health, our love, our relationship. And so with the Phoenix Collective, we've set price points to give people maximum value, but it does take a commitment from them. They have to be invested in their own personal growth. Because for a lot of years I've done this stuff, and people who aren't prepared to pay something, and we'll
Right.
always talk about it and get them scholarshiped in if we have to. If they're not prepared to pay something, we've all got time, talent, and treasure to give, and then I find that they never really get the return that they want.
Interesting. Yeah. And the book, when is the book coming out?
So the book, Turning Shit into Fertilizer, which I'm going to talk to my agent about. So it depends. I've got two. I've got Turning Shit into Fertilizer, and I've changed the name on the other to Till It's Done. So
Oh,
Turning Shit into Fertilizer is my memoir, and Till It's Done is a book it's a fictionalized story on military sexual trauma. And it looks at the cost of PTSD, corruption within the VA, corruption with the DOD, and
oh,
and the conversations that are happening in our nation at the moment. So that's going through a series of beta readers at the moment, which are people that sign up and say, "Hey, listen, I want to read your manuscript before anybody else. If you want to get in on that program, I'll send you a copy, Catalina, so you can have a read of it."
yes, I
I
would
don't know if
love
you've got
to.
any time, but you might like it. It's
I travel, yeah. I
well,
mean,
yeah, and I'll send you a PDF, and you can sit on your phone, and I'll send you a little link to a form. You can just fill it in and send it back. So, and I've actually written a 3-part series called Rats and Rain. And Rats and Rain was based on my work with Epstein and Nygaard and my own story. And it actually shows you how people are trafficked and groomed and the elites in society. It's all that sort of stories that happen from our work that we did that I fictionalized so I could tell the story. So yeah, so there's a launch list on the Dr. John A. King website if they fill it in, and I'll start these conversations with people about when the book comes out, if they want to chat with the author, they want to know what it's like to write a book, how to publish a book, all those sorts of things.
oh, that's amazing. And you said DOD. Were you in the DOD? How do you?
No, no, just so a lot of the people we work with are very elite military people, and a lot of veterans are in our programs, and I've been blessed with relationships with those people, particularly when we're working in the trafficking stuff. And so I hear some horror stories from people that I love the most about, and what's interesting is our very elite war fighters, a very large percentage of them were sexually or physically abused as young boys, and they've they don't have PTSD, in all honesty, from the things they did overseas. They have PTSD from the fact that they weren't able to protect themselves as kids. And so they come back to America and they want to talk about trauma, but their trauma is not from in the sandbox. It's from what happened on the sandbox on their baseball diamond as a child. And they can't, because then the VA will declare that a pre-existing condition and they'll lose their benefits. It's the same for police officers. If police officers talk about the fact that they're suffering PTSD, they get taken off active duty and given a desk job. So a lot of our time we spend having those conversations with people, because they can't have it through normal channels. So the conversations in the DOD is things, like the graft and corruption that happens in Congress. There's the scandal with the Arlington Cemetery with all the bodies floating. The simple fact that we lost, like, I think close to, I think it was 5 or 6 million records at a minimum when we changed to a digital system, and all of those families were taken off the system and lost benefits, and people died because they couldn't get their medication. I mean, tens of thousands of people died, and no one's been held accountable. Everyone in Congress knows about it, and no one's prepared to have a conversation. And even with military sexual trauma, the sheer volume of men that are sexually abused every year within the armed forces is a conversation that the DoD won't have. And they're just now recognizing the sexual trauma to females within the military. They're not, and they're nowhere near close to having that conversation about men.
Interesting. This would make an amazing next episode. I didn't know you had so much knowledge on a topic that I'm pretty close to, because I've
Yeah,
been
good.
working for the DoD. Wow, and definitely I would love to learn more. And I guess another question would be, what do you want your work, your books, your documentaries, your communities and films to leave behind long after you're gone? Like, what is your purpose, and
Oh,
what do you want your
it'll it'll
legacy?
it'll sound very silly to people, because I know you probably get a bunch of people who want to come on and talk about changing a billion lives and stuff, but I honestly just would, if I can honestly impact one man and help him be a better husband and a father and to love himself. And I know people think that's a very small goal, and would I love to do that a billion times over? Yeah, I would, but I would, of course, I would. But I've got to tell you, I take immense pleasure in helping one, and I know that runs culture to what we're all supposed to be and say, but I take immense pleasure in helping one person, and I hope they read my fiction work and they can't put it down. I hope they think it's so trashy they want to read it on the toilet and they want to read it on the beach and it get covered in beers and tears and sun cream. And I hope they read Turning Shit into Fertilizer and cry out loud and dirty cry and snot everywhere, because that's what it took to write it. I hope it heals them and gives them permission to get up and go again.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, I know I'm going to read it. Although I only watched 2 minutes of your documentary and I was already crying out of control.
They were documentaries. They were documentaries made by other folks. I'd love to do another documentary. I'd like to do one on biohacking trauma, and I would love to do one on, because both those documentaries come up to a certain point, and the point that's really fascinating for me is the point that happened afterwards, because all of
Mm.
that's my past, and I'm a very future focused man, and I've had to do that for survival, and I've had to do that for recovery. But I think for anybody who goes through these traumatic things, the future is our best friend. Now is all we have, but the future and the ability to be able to imagine a future that you want to inhabit is very important.
you know, I mean, I think that's one of those things that's what gives you hope, right? You were
Yeah.
thinking about this healed, strong, resilient version of a grown Dr. King.
I've got a question for you, if I'm allowed to ask one.
Sure.
What do you do for your own mental health? What are Catalina Magee's daily or weekly mental health practices to hold your your ducks in a row?
I pray. I
Yeah.
think that's key. I have my icon right by the bed. So the first thing I see is Jesus and his mom, whom I love very much, Christian Orthodox people, we love Virgin Mary. And I have to have that the first thing I do in the morning, I have to pray. I have to receive that. Like I can't just, all these earthly things. So that if I go a day without my prayer, then my day is very chaotic. I can't. So
That's
that
wonderful.
is, yeah, it's the prayer for me. And I enjoy walking. Every
Ah,
evening I go on a walk. And I do have all those rituals too. In the morning, the quiet time with God, and then throughout the day, you know, um, I like to drink enough water. So I do have those, yeah, also
yeah.
very much so, like the 3 liters of water, the this and that. The time is just gotta go to bed at that time. I like to wake up at the same time. So yeah, but definitely what helps me is God, is prayer.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Is there, to wrap it up, if there's a question you wish I had asked that I haven't, what would that be?
I don't think there is. You're very good at this, and it's been thorough.
Oh,
I've done
thank
lots of these, and this is thoroughly enjoyable. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I actually had 35 questions and I've only asked you like 12. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna go into any deeper and all this extra. Because I feel like this was so good. This is perfect. The
Well, I'll
wisdom
come back
and
and do another one. I'll drag Melissa on. Let you
oh,
meet
that would
her.
be amazing.
Yeah,
If
that'd
you
be fun.
guys can do one together, that would be amazing. I have a feeling it's gonna be,
It'll
yeah,
be good. I want to do it,
yes,
as I told you, I want to do a virtual book tour a couple of months next year, and I'll get ahead. I'll get an email into you ahead of time and try and set
please.
something on, and we'll come in and talk about the books coming out and all that sort of stuff. Yeah,
Yes, and
be
we
good.
can present them and
That'd be
discuss about
wonderful.
each book. Yes.
Yeah.
Now that we know we have your story, we've given everybody a background of, you know, what to expect and who you are as a person, then we are going to focus on the books and
And I'll try not to be
the
so
healing.
Australian and cuss so much next time. I tried myself. You can't cuss. I'm going
Nah,
on with
you
Catalina.
be
I got to be.
you. No, you be who you are. That's the best part about you. You're authentic. And I actually cuss too. It's crazy because I'm a Christian
All
Orthodox,
good
but I
women
cuss.
do. All good women do.
Yes, yeah. Don't let all this fool you, all this makeup fool you. I just, yeah. So, yeah, I have a different audience.
Guys, it's good.
So, but thank you so much, Dr. King. This was amazing, and I'm so honored. And I would love to keep in touch and have you back
Please.
with your lovely wife.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Stay
Bye bye.
blessed. Bye.